Yeah, the
People
whole
are going to want to
goal
see it.
is, yeah, the whole goal is to just to make it fun and easy. So let me share my screen. Okay. Why is it not full screen? There we go. All right. Can you all get to see my screen okay? Okay. So I honestly don't know how many of us on the team do sales enablement writing. Whenever I started sales, we just called it marketing. And so it's definitely changed over the last few years. And sales enablement is actually really, really cool. I enjoy a lot of it and do quite a bit. But I don't know who all does this for the hire writer team or just in general outside of that.
I think everybody has. Everybody has. Yes, everybody definitely has. And some people do it more than others.
Okay. Well, my model is the SASSI model. And so I like to keep things sassy, as most of you know, like to have a good time. And I thought that that was maybe the most appropriate acronym for the process, right? So when we're talking about sales enablement, right, we're talking emails, SMS campaigns, DMs, hard copy flyers, sales scripts, white papers, ebooks, case studies, all that good stuff. For the purpose of this, really what I wanted to focus on were kind of the top three, right? Emails, SMS campaigns, DMs, and maybe even some of the hard copy flyers. I think that, from a long form standpoint, we have a pretty good grasp on the white papers and ebooks and case studies and those pieces. It's the others where you're required to really condense down the information and get it across in a super consumable way that a lot of people have struggled with. And there is an art to crafting the right sales email. I'll be the first to admit that it took me years to figure out how to do it to where people would actually open them up. And so it definitely is one of those things where practice makes perfect, and making it easier is going to help. So what is SASSI? SASSI is simple, actionable, scannable, solution-oriented, and informative, right? It has to be something that is easy to read, something that is easy for them to get through. We have shorter attention spans every year. What is it? 7 seconds, essentially. I think it's a little longer whenever they open up an email. I think it's somewhere around 14 seconds that you have to, kind of capture their attention, get them to do something. Otherwise, you're completely lost, and they're going to discard it, and you'll never move forward with that prospect. And so these kind of 5 components are essential for any message. It doesn't matter if it's something that's just a quick one-off or if you're doing a big drip campaign. I think all of these kind of play into the process. Kudos to Canva for the sassy little girl. I do not know who that is, but I couldn't find one of Marigold, so I figured this was the next best option. Okay, so simple. So this is kind of the first component to the process, right? We know that email open rates lie somewhere between 17 and 28% on a good day. Getting them to the higher end of that mark and above is not always easy. So from a simple standpoint, right, we want to make sure that subject lines are incredibly direct and to the point. They shouldn't be obscure. We don't need it to be something that is off the wall, because if it doesn't register immediately, it's going to immediately get deleted. As I said, leave the mystery writing to John Grisham. We do not need it to be something that is, what the hell is this? Who is messaging me, and why should I even open it? It should be very, very clear, and we should have a very clear next step of, this is something that I want to look at. Focusing on the problem is a little bit more difficult than it seems, just because you're trying to do that in such a small amount of words or characters. So your alternate text or your kind of preview text is a great window to be able to do that. The biggest thing that I see is, and even I'm guilty of it as well. Whenever I'm crafting these, you tend to overthink it. It's like, okay, well, what's going to resonate with this customer? And it does vary from one customer to the next. Like, it's not a given that the same message is going to be, is going to resonate even within, a specific organization from one to the next. And then the biggest thing is never overpromise. We're all familiar with I think Joy's joked about them a number of times. I can guarantee, 3 or 10x success and blah, 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 right? Leave that at the door. There's no room for it. And to be perfectly honest, it's a quick way to get, put into the scam folder. So from a simple standpoint, like I said, we'll kind of go through some of the key components. And so again, I wanted to look at a couple of different options, right? So this is one of what I would deem a better email that came across, that comes across. It's very, very, very focused, right? Hey, here's a B2B tool. It's for e-commerce. Clearly, I should care about it. Whether that's true or not, I honestly don't know. But at the same time, within this, there are, these other 3 emails are potentially good, potentially bad, right? So let's take the second one, the click email, because I have a couple of other ones from this organization that are just a lot of fun to look at. So where did they go wrong? What could they do better? We'll kind of open it up to discussion on that.
What does the ear have to do with it?
So Mike Tyson bit off Evander Holyfield's ear in the 90s.
No, but I get that. So is it cauliflower candy? Like, what are we talking about here?
So to give you a little bit of background, the Click is they're a sales lead organization. And you would never know that by that email.
Nope.
I don't know what DST is.
I have no idea. I refuse to click on it.
I thought it was daylight savings time. It took me a minute to get there.
You could be right, yeah.
I was going to say, it seems like a savings time or daylight, like a time zone thing, but
what does that have to do with Mike Tyson's new candy? Right. I get the feeling that a lot of organizations are trying to go with the really off the wall, crazy subject lines because they think that it's going to pique somebody's like, what the hell is that? Like, it sparks discussion. I'll give them that. But the fact is I have no idea. That is a cold email. I've never talked to that company. This came to my inbox and it's like, why is that something that I should care about? Right. Now, on the flip side, we have ones like this. So obviously not Neil Patel, but so what could they have done? I guess this Alan Dibb, what could they have done better? What did they not do? What are your first and immediate reactions to it?
I don't like that it's not capitalized.
Okay, I 100% agree.
So they could have done that better, but
yes, no, you're absolutely right. That is, immediate points off for me if I'm looking at it. Just doesn't look professional.
It's very vague. Like, whose trust are we trying to win? Like, what is the purpose of this at all? Like, that could be anything.
Right. Is it a sales email? Is it I honestly have no idea.
It's too mysterious, right? So like you said, leave the mystery writing to John Grisham. Like, I feel like it's kind of like spammy and like clickbaity when I see like emails like that. Like, oh, this low-key hack works every time, or, similar to the, what you were talking about, like emails that like overpromise. Like, this is kind of a similar vein to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting, you put this up against the Neil Patel email that's up above that, right? That is a very different message. That is one that is much more likely to be clicked on because it is very to the point. Now, obviously, Neil Patel has his stuff together, and it's not going to come across as win their trust in all lowercase. But I think that it's a very good, the two sides of the same coin, right? You have two very different approaches. One works and one doesn't, is the fact. As for David's T, I have no idea what that is. So the next piece of the puzzle is actionable. So I think where a lot of the emails that I receive, right? And the fact that I, decided a long time ago on LinkedIn to put CEO or, founder of my own business on there, I get off the wall emails all the time, but the intended action is something that I think a lot of people miss out on. Whenever you're writing a sales email, the intended action is not to sell the product, in my opinion. The intended action is to get them to click on something and to do a specific step. Whereas I think that a lot of, early in my sales career, I used email to try and sell off of that email as opposed to get them to, complete a specific series of steps, right? And I think that that's something that we can all improve upon, but you always have to keep in mind what the intended action is. And if that's not very, very clear, whether it's through a call to action or otherwise, it can even be through the subject line. I think it has to be something that is front and center. That can also be with the opening line, right? So if your opening line is something that is very vague, I think, as Sanders pointed out, right, the other piece was vague. If you are that opening line is your ticket in, right? You have one sentence basically to pique their interest. Otherwise, you're done. They're going to move on. It can be a question. I really like opening up with something, but it has to be something that creates a point of conversation. One of the sales organizations that we write for, they really are big on kind of not necessarily adversarial writing, but really trying to create a point of contention, right? A known fact and putting it into a different perspective, right? Bringing about something that they may not expect that's maybe a widely known piece. And then on the backside of that, providing evidence, right? You from an actionable standpoint, if I have statistics to back up whatever I am reading, it's going to be more likely that I actually follow through and click on that call to action or whatnot. And then the last piece of that is leaving it open-ended. I think that's a big mistake for a lot of people. It's, it needs to be very, very clear. The more clear you can make it that this is the next step that you should be taking, that everybody else that's reading this is taking, the more likely that they'll actually follow through. If you just kind of leave it open-ended and there's no clear direction, you're going to have a hard time. All right, is there anything else that y'all might add, from an actionable standpoint?
I think evidence you could also accompany the idea of providing evidence with like providing a reference point. So sometimes the way that you're creating a conversation needs validation, like external. So, 93% of X do this, or here's a, recommendation from somebody who in your, who's like a business like yours, blah, 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 right? So sometimes there's a validation component, but I think other times there might be, the other side of that where you're wanting to refer to something that's going on in the world. And it's a little bit more just preferential to create that connection. But either way, the point of both is to like bind them to the idea in such a way that they want to move to the next step. So I like the order you put this into. I think that's perfect. Yeah.
Anybody else have any?
Make that a template
there? I think that the one big kind of overarching thing is that it has to be like you're ultimately getting them into, this is, I guess from a sales enablement standpoint, we're talking top of the funnel, the absolute top of the funnel. And so you're never going to sell based on one interaction. And I think that as soon as you recognize that, it makes the process entirely different. It makes it significantly easier. And these can be paired with other pieces of sales enablement materials. All right. That evidence could be, to Joy's point, could be an ebook, right? That could be the ultimate goal. And the call to action is to download this ebook. It may not be that you're going to actually get them to sit, buy right off the bat. You're trying to create value and, build that relationship, even through cold outreach. And so I think that, when you pair all of this together, it makes it a lot easier for somebody to go, okay, well, I get why they're sending this to me. The other thing is if you know something about their business, you have to tread the line or tread lightly, because you don't want to necessarily assume what problems and challenges they're facing. But if you do have some sort of idea of, hey, we know in this space that this is a common challenge, it can be another conversation piece that can be added to it, just to kind of add a different layer to the email or message. All right, so SCANNABLE. This one is by far the biggest issue that I see anytime I'm reading, these eyesore emails that come across my computer. I would imagine this is something that we do much better than most companies, because we have people that are editing these very heavily. But the truth is you only have about 14 seconds to gain their attention, and the overwhelming majority are read on a phone. So big text blocks are not going to work, right? It has to be white space friendly, and it has to be 2 sentences tops, really, right? You never want to do that. You want to make sure that you have bullet points in there whenever you can. That way you can kind of draw the reader's attention to specific, key pieces and make it very, very clear where their eyes need to go. And again, remember the goal, right? The goal is not necessarily to sell them on a product. It's to get them to read the email and actually engage with the piece of content that you've created. I guess from a copywriting standpoint, I know it's not the most common thing, but I know it's much bigger in the world of kind of graphic design. But are y'all familiar with the Z pattern of writing? Yes, no, maybe so. Looks like we've got a couple that are yeses, a couple no's. Okay.
I'm not.
No. Okay. So there are 2 different ways of kind of that we naturally will scan articles as human beings, right? One is the F pattern, one is the Z pattern. The F pattern is literally line by line. It's one of those things where it doesn't happen as much as it used to because we are inundated with so much information now. Naturally, what we have come to do, and the research shows, is we follow a very clear Z pattern where we scan the first line and then we jump down. A lot of times that first line that you write in an email may be completely glossed over. If it can be, they quickly read it, but then they're jumping down to a factual statement, the bullet points, something in bold, right? Something that stands out. So that's why a lot of the really effective emails that you see will actually make it very, very clear where the eyes need to go, and it will follow that Z style pattern. And if you can learn to write like that, it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to create engagement and improve your click rates. The Z pattern doesn't necessarily do much for open, but it will definitely improve how effective you are at getting them into that next phase or getting them deeper into the funnel. And this is one of those things where, like I said, you can do it within writing. It can also be done within graphic design. And so I'll show you here in a moment. We'll start dissecting some of the sales flyers that I've done for some of my customers, and you'll see kind of that is kind of the flow. The idea is for your eyes to focus on specific areas as you're going through it. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So solution oriented. Solution oriented is one of those things where it is very, I think a lot of people that are writing sales emails miss the mark on this, right? I noticed, I believe, I think, I. The people that are reading these do not care what you think. They do not care about your perspective, right? They care about their problems. They care about their challenges. And so I should never appear in any sales email, right? It should never be, even if it's a, very, very specific, if it's any kind of drip campaign, it should always be, if you're going to go the route of the company that you're writing for's perspective, it's a we instead of an I, because you want to be the collective. But the general idea is that you don't want to, you want to start off with their problems, with their challenges, what they're facing, understanding that, and then being able to move forward. Again, not assuming their goals. That's kind of the balance, right? You have to make it and frame it about them, but at the same time understand that you can't see all of the picture. Those pieces might come into play later, but at the same time, you're never going to have a full picture until you actually get on the phone or into a deeper conversation with these individuals. The challenging questions is an interesting way of going about it, right? So if you were to go in and ask something that's a hard question that is going to generate a response, are you struggling with X, Y, or Z? are your sales down because of this, 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 this? Are you having problems in these specific areas? You know, it's going to be able to be something that's going to actually spark, you know, that conversation. It also at the same time demonstrates expertise, right? You have to be able to show through very, very few words that you understand what some of the common challenges are and that you have a solution that can actually address that. And if you don't, then why are you emailing that person in the first place? Offering something for free is obviously, like, you know, like I said, the ebooks, things like that. I think there's a lot of, you know, opportunity there for us to kind of dive into it. You know, whether if it's a DM, it might be just a link to a blog. It might be something that's really, really straightforward. But at the same time, you know, provide value through the process. It's not just, again, it's never about it's about creating value and building that relationship and getting them into the funnel where potentially they can, you know, jump into as a sales qualified lead. So, and again, nothing happens with one email. I was in sales for over a decade. I can promise you I did not sell one single thing off of one single cold email. So don't expect it to be that way. The best thing you can do with this stuff is make it so that it's super friendly, super easy to engage with, and drive them, you know, further down the line. Okay, informative. So the last piece, this is the last piece. Support your claims. If you do have hard data, you know, link it, you know, give some evidence based on it. It can be a customer testimonial. That's a great way to go about it. If you have a quick little bitty quote, you don't want to include a giant block of text, obviously, but it's something that's really straightforward. Numbers are by far the easiest thing to read. So if you have the option, 68% not typed out, just 6, 8, and % sign is going to be much easier for them to get through and go from there. Details are one of those things that it's a bit of a challenge for some people, right? You have to give enough details and kind of peel back the curtain just enough to get their interest, but not enough to give away the farm, if you will. If you give away too much information in the email, what winds up happening is the person reading it assumes they have all of the relevant information and they can make a decision based off of that. If you only give them enough to pique their interest, they're required to go a little bit deeper into the process. And so, again, finding that balance is absolutely critical, but also whenever you're putting details in there, it's going to bog down the email. And again, I'm not going to read something that is, you know, that looks like it, you know, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's just not going to get my attention. So again, bullet points to your friends. By far, one of the best things that you can do is bullet point, keep it to 3 to maybe 4 maximum, and keep the text as short as possible. Cut out unnecessary words. I know that that's something that we as writers have a harder time doing, is that self-correction. We want to make sure that it's grammatically correct, but at the same time, can it be easily scannable? And can you get to the point in 3, 4 words and nothing more? The kind of the last piece of it is helping them reach the conclusion, right? So you have to help them get to the point where they say, okay, I believe that this is something that can help me, without telling them it can help them, right? If I tell you I can help you, it's one thing, right? You think, okay, well, sure, I've heard that 1,000 times. If I can provide the amount of evidence and keep it informative and help you reach that conclusion on your own, it's much more likely that I will actually generate results. And so it doesn't have to be that, you know, like I said, you don't have to have a ton of information, but it has to be something that's, okay, well, this makes sense to me. If it doesn't make sense, it's not going to go forward. The next email that they receive from you is not going to get open, most likely. So, all right, any questions? We'll dive into some of the things here in a moment. So, or anything I might have missed.
Where do you stand on personalization in cold emails?
I like it from the standpoint of, I don't know. It's one of those things where the tools exist now, so everybody knows that it's not actually that person that's writing the email and saying, "Hi, John, you know, thank you for blah 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 blah." It's not as effective as it was a few years ago. I think it's more effective when it is one-off emails that are not that are significantly more specific. If it's a very generic and a very like an initial cold outreach, in my opinion, it comes across as ingenuine in a lot of ways. I prefer not to do it. It's more, I'd rather lead with a good, leading question than a, half-hearted, hi, John. I guess that's my opinion on it. Joy, what's yours?
I think done right, it can work super well. But, if you like get an AI to write it and you can produce first lines that are just a load of crap and not relevant to anyone, right? But I think if you, do like a real personal, focus on it, it can work well.
It's one of those things where if you are, I think it's harder to do in mass than it is one-on-one, right? Because from a sales standpoint, if I'm writing to, Ross, if I'm writing to you, my first line is going to be very, very different than if I'm writing to this entire group as a collective, right? I'm going to pinpoint exactly what is going to resonate with you as a person, right? Like if I know, okay, well, you're a, I don't know, you're a Celtic fan or you're a Hearts fan, and I saw that they won last week. Hey man, saw that there was a
impressionist team. I'm already.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love soccer, so or football. But yeah. So but if I know, okay, you're Scottish and you follow these teams, and you posted something a few weeks ago about this team, and I saw it on your social media page or whatever, I can make that hyper specific, and then whenever I send it across with your name in it, it's much more relevant. Whereas if I'm sending it I can't say that to Joy, right? Like, Joy, here are 10, hi Joy, heard you had a cat, and here are your 10 tips on, becoming a good cat mom, something like that. Not that she would open it because she doesn't care. You're muted.
Yeah, I think that you hit it on the head. That's exactly what it is. If it's done in mass and it sounds, I also think it's important, and I think it almost harkens back to a point you made earlier about kind of don't assume their problems. Because I get so many cold emails from people who want to be on our blog or who want to work for us or who want this and that and the other, right? And it's always, or agencies, services, SaaS companies, and they're like, do you have a problem with leads? No. End of conversation. Or are your sales down? No. I don't like it when people assume. I'm like, you don't know me. And if it's not correct, I will never, I will hit this is spam in my inbox. So I think it's knowing, not assuming. And Mark, to your point, all the examples you gave of using personal connections, as a human is fine. But yeah, don't make assumptions about their business situation or needs until you've gotten in there. I think that actually earns you a lot more credibility because it leads me to understand, that it requires more analysis to understand whether or not I need what you're offering.
Correct.
There's a football team called the Hearts.
Hearts. Yeah.
Yeah, not my team, but there is a team.
Not your team that you said? That's Scottish Premier League.
I'm going to look it up. That sounds
that.
So who is your team, Ross?
Airdrie Onions are my team.
Okay. Is that a smaller club?
Yeah, tiny. Airdrie Onions.
You got to Slack us that because I can't understand how to spell it. I'll look it up.
The football hierarchy overseas it fascinates me. So we don't have an equivalent of that in many ways here in the US. So I think baseball might be the closest where you have minor league clubs, but I don't know. You don't have that dedicated fan bases in those regards. So it's always interesting. All right. So we'll take a look at a few different examples. Some of these came to me. Some of them I just Googled and kind of found some funny ones that we'll look at. But one actually I received today. So we'll look at that here in a moment. All right. This is the first one. This was just one that I found that ChatGPT had generated. So take a moment, kind of read through it. And I thought this was very, on the nose for what Joy said a moment ago. So it talks about, freelance writing opportunities.
Tragic.
Every time I see, I hope this email finds you well, I think of a possum trapped in a mailbox. You open that mailbox and the possum is in there squealing at you because you do not want to be found well. Just stop.
It is in my opinion, that is the least genuine opening that you could possibly come up with from a sales standpoint.
Like what?
Like, I get that this is AI generated, but too many people do it regardless. Like, I hope this finds you well, or I hope you're doing okay. Like, do you really care that that person is doing okay? No, because if you didn't, you would clearly have. If you had a relationship with them, you wouldn't open that way. Yeah.
Best regards.
Yeah. Now some of them make sense, or some of the pieces of this make sense, right? I came across your LinkedIn profile, but again, they lead with I, right? I hope this finds you well. I came across your profile, instead of just saying your profile on LinkedIn was impressive and it looked like you have experience in freelance writing and content creation. We are looking for those type of skills. It's that whole first paragraph is nothing but, I'm looking, this is for me. I don't care anything about you. I want to make sure it's going to be, good.
Well, and like to your point that we believe that you have the skills and knowledge to help us achieve our goals. Like, I can tell you right now, as somebody who hires, nobody cares about my goals.
Right.
Nobody cares about my company.
How much money am I going to make?
How much do you pay?
And how much do you pay? And that's pretty much it.
Can I work whenever I want? That's the other one I get. Yeah.
So the other big thing is it's very text heavy. Like very, very text heavy. In fact, I skip, Caitlin, you went immediately from there to best regards. You skipped over the bulk of the text, didn't you?
Who did a Z? Did you?
I was immediately offended, and then my brain was like, I don't give a crap. And it's over now. So,
but look, you did it. You did exactly what you described. I hope this finds you well. Best regards.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm a Z reader through and through.
There's nothing in those two middle paragraphs that draws your attention, and nothing that makes me want to read them. Except
for the word SEO, except for that, because it's capitalized, and that's the only thing that's different than the rest of the middle of that text. Yep. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, SEO. Yep. All right. Okay, we're over now.
So, okay. Any other last thoughts on that one before we go to the next one? All right. Here's another one that I found. This seems more of a one-off. It doesn't seem, or maybe it's the last one of a drip campaign, is my guess. Now, there are some components of this that aren't bad, but most of it's pretty terrible.
This really hurts, Mark. You're kind of putting a damper on my afternoon here.
That's the point. It's supposed to be sassy, Caitlin. It's not supposed to be sunshine and rainbows.
It's so bad.
I'm in danger of a rant with this one. Because this is like, I just said, like, you don't know me, and don't put words in my mouth. I'm busy. I didn't even notice your other emails. You're threatening to go away later. Like,
I also deleted all your other emails. So why are we Row Labs and Salesforce? No, why are we doing that?
I don't want to keep bombarding you with emails, but that's what I'm doing.
Also, hi, Heather R.
Yeah.
Like, is there other Heathers in your inbox that you're talking to? Like, wow.
Yeah, clearly tokenized first name. Yeah, that's another big piece. If you're doing anything, if you're on the back end of this and you're doing
CRM.
Yeah, you have really bad CRM fields right now that need to be cleaned up very badly.
I also think it's a huge mistake to ever reference in marketing or sales anything you've historically done with that person or that contact as negative. And what they've done here is classify their previous emails as unwanted and negative, right? I've been, what you're admitting in this first line is I've been bombarding you with emails, and I know you don't like that.
Yeah.
What?
I would hit reply and be like, yes, you are bombarding me. Please stop.
So to be perfectly honest, like whenever I was going through sales training, this is affectionately referred to as a breakup email. Like, that is what this is. And the whole goal of this is to generate some sort of action, positive or negative. Action is the whole goal here. And if it does something, if it generates something that's negative and Joy responds, then at least I got some action out of it, and I can kind of counter with, well, oh, I'm sorry, maybe we're not a perfect match, but I'd love to learn more about your business, blah 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 blah. Right. That is the whole reason behind this. The now the 1, 2, 3 bullet points are kind of awful.
They're so long.
Yeah, they're very, very long. You've been too shy to say so. You've really been wanting to call. You've been really wanting.
The language is weird. Like, I had to read that third one twice because I was like, you've really been wanting me to call you?
Yes.
It actually took so much brain effort to read that.
But you've been too shy to say so. Yeah, that's
ever since Sanders talked about Garens, it's all I've been able to see. And now it's right there, wanting me to call you.
And then the classic, please let me know which one it is. Right? Like, just painful.
And the period right at the end. That's so sassy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I wouldn't reply to them. It makes me angry. Like, I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to give you the satisfaction.
That's the whole goal of this, is to anger everybody so that you do not make these mistakes. All right. I think the last one in this one is maybe the most fun one. And I found this, and there are notes on this which just make it that much better.
Exactly. Read what? Why are you? BCC.
Right? Like,
You're hard to get.
There's a lot going on there. But it's kind of this jumbles it all together than what we were talking about, right? There are pieces that can be done on the back end, whether it's through your CRM, to make this where this is much more easily readable. But at the same time, it's just very poorly written. Luckily, Joy doesn't redline things for us like this. Not really.
Only when I'm laying in bed at night and I can't sleep.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So I think, Caitlin, you pointed out the regards a moment ago. So how would you end a sales email? Much better written than this, of course, but how would you end it if it's a cold email, first one in the drip campaign, essentially?
I've been known to say some ridiculous things at the end of emails.
Later skater.
Later skater. I haven't used that one, but it's probably going to hit the run now. This is actually really good timing because I'm about to start a new campaign for cold leads. So this is going to be fun.
Yep.
No, sometimes it's hard, right? Like, you feel obligated to say something in closing. Mm-hmm. But do you even have to? I don't think so. I think there's been I don't know that anything coming out of there in a scalable fashion is genuine. Like, you're never going to say kindest regards, best wishes. Like, what is this, a Hallmark card? Like, stop doing that. So usually when I finish off an email, like, let me see if I can pull one up here.
You're right. Absolutely. It's hard to get a genuine kind of follow up to whatever you're doing. I mean, if one of the ones that I see a lot are, I look forward to connecting. No, you look forward to selling me something. Like, that is a very different thing than if I'm messaging Sanders about, whatever, like, hey man, I look forward to chatting. Like, that's a different concept. Honestly, I'm a big proponent of just leaving it at, if you're including like a Calendly link, let them see what the next step is, right? Here is the concrete next step, is you are booking time with me.
We did that with Redacted. And I love those ones. I love the way that those emails landed because they kept with the attitude, and the ending was like, grab some time. Like, it puts the ball in the reader's, lap. They can take that action, and then you don't have to follow up with them like, hey, sorry, I've been so annoying. I noticed you haven't read any of my emails.
And there are two different ways to go about it, right? It can be the hyper aggressive, and it can also be very passive at the same time, right? You can take two different, like, the one that we Joy and I talk about is if it makes sense, right? That's the That's the Aslan way, right? If we don't want to suggest connecting if it doesn't make sense. That's fine, but that's not my preferred way to go about it. But okay, so that was those. We're gonna look at one more. Let me get my email up so that we can look at this little guy. Move that out of the way so you can see that, so that you can see this in its full glory. And then I'll show you the rest of them.
I mean, that's a big jump in click-through. Dang. Okay, but they're missing a period. Don't do that. Michael Sturm.
What do you think about this, Mark?
Well, first of all, I don't care anything about the first American flag being created by a high school student, and I have zero idea of why that has any impact on any of the other things they're talking about. And if you need to include a PS, you didn't accomplish your goal. I would say that, you know, you're looking at the kind of the Z pattern, right? I'm skipping over that first line because it doesn't have it. It bears no relevance. It will make me go to the second line because I'm just like, what the hell is this about?
But you know what's funny? I was going to say that long line, I skipped that long line because it's way longer than everything else. And I was like, no, I'm not reading that. I don't want to read it. Everything else is super short. I'm not reading that. So I actually don't even know what the tool does because I skipped it.
Right. Well, and it's, we'd be happy. We helped our tool. But our tool's been used by Porsche and Salesforce. That's awesome. I'm not Porsche or Salesforce. So the subsequent email was this little penguin guy.
I don't hate it.
I don't either, which is you know, maybe a problem. It's unique. There's no period. I hate that. The punctuation's not correct. It does look like it's written by an actual human instead of going through a drip campaign, and maybe that's intentional. But don't include the penguins. Like, come on. And then these were the last two that I received. Again, still don't have an idea what their tool is, but here's how it works. And I'm not going to read all of that because it's text heavy.
I hate when they ask if you're the right person to contact regarding this. Well, obviously not, because I've ignored all your emails so far.
Oh, no. I responded, this is to my hire writer email. I said, no, Joy is the right person that needs to be.
Here's your email.
Joy's going to put you in spam.
So, you know, like I said, consider this, all right? Most people aren't going to read this from their desktop. All of this is going to get scrunched into numerous lines. Not that I'm going to ever read this anyway, other than for the purpose of this. We're upping his open rate by looking at this. So I guess that's good for him. But if I'm looking at this from my phone, I'm never making it through this block of text, even though it's bullet points. Like, there's nothing in that really, like, I just don't know what your tool does, and I don't really care how it works.
And like, what do you mean you're going to take a fraction of the results after you create me 3 interactive videos? What do you?
Yep.
This is dumb.
My guess is he writes like he's Israeli.
Interesting.
That would be my guess. What do you think, Ross? Not of whether or not he's Israeli, but what do you think of this email?
I think so. The first email that you shared, there's like a lot of elements of the best practices that you talked about, but I think it's pretty poorly executed, right? So the first sentence should be disruptive and attention catching, right? There's clearly an attempt to do that, even if it's kind of weird and talking about an American flag. Like, I don't care, but like you said, it's different. They have, like, they offer value. They'll create 3 interactive videos for you. They show like results. increase of click-through rate. They show some social proof, even though like Hire a Writer is completely different from Porsche and Salesforce. So I think there's elements to follow some kind of system that we think is pretty good, but the execution is poor and the writing is even worse.
The brand, like their website is actually nice. Question mark?
Is it? Question
mark? I mean, I don't hate it. It actually feels like Playwire-y, that same type of vibe, but it's a tool for creating and sharing videos.
Yeah. No, I agree, Ross. The attempt was there. It just fell flat. I do like I don't like the opening line that he chose, but I like the idea of opening with a question of, something that's a disruptive statement, right? That is, okay, this is going to go against probably what you're expecting to see, but it has to be relevant is the critical piece to that. If they lost me at American Flag, like I don't care that you're telling me that it was created by a high school student. That has nothing to do with my business, and that has nothing to do with anything else. So clearly you're just trying to get me, to continue reading.
I thought it was that Victorian lady who sewed. Sanders, what do you think about it?
Well, first, I don't know if that American Flag line is even true. Like I read it, and I was like, it sounds like a lie.
I think it actually is.
Like a recent
I
high
want
school?
to say that, I want to say that there was a contest back in like the 50s, and that's where it came from. Like after Alaska and Hawaii were added, and that's where they came up with the new flag. I think that's correct. But
all right, so not like the continental flag or whatever from like the returns. And then the second thing that really stood out to me, and the second thing that really stood out to me was the kind of statistical proof that they gave. That we helped a company increase their CTR. Not only does it seem like a huge overpromise, but I hate how it's a single company. Like we helped a company do it, just one. So, look how successful we are. I just think it would, like we've helped many companies, some increasing their CTR to that point, but I don't know, just hit me in the wrong way.
Also, what is the scope of that work, right? If that was, we created one email campaign for them and we increased it from 59 or 0.59% to 4.52%. That's a lot different than we've been working for a company over the course of the last year and a half. And we have all of this body of proof that even if it's just one company, right, it doesn't give me any scope. So it's hard to tell, because if I write a really good campaign for a client right off the bat, I would expect those numbers to jump.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a high school student. His name was Bob, 1958. His mom was an avid seamstress and refused to help him make the flag. So yeah, he was forced to design it on his own as a high school project. Poor kid.
Joy, what is your stance on the name dropping, the portion Salesforce?
I don't care. People do that too when they try to apply to work here, and they'll be like, I've written for X and X and X. I'm like, I don't care. I mean, it's too easy. You can say, sure, who are you gonna give me the name and phone number of the person you worked with at Porsche? You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe you. That maybe you did that, maybe you didn't. Like, it's so easy to lie about something like that. And I strongly suspect if you're doing cold outreach to small digital agencies like ours, then that's actually not true.
Yeah. If you're coming through Upwork, you're just padding stats.
Don't believe you.
So.
I also think that kind of thing is a lot more impactful if you say like, oh, I've worked with small agencies like X and Y, right? Like, I don't care that you've worked with Porsche and Salesforce, because, you know, those are huge global companies. Like, it's going to be very different if you work for us. So, you know, show me that you know how our model works and understand how our business is.
And it would be more, I think it would be more impressive on the small side if you know, I help them develop their brand identity, right? Porsche already has a brand identity. That's not something, you know, they're going to have a very distinct way that they write, and they're not going to take anything else. Whereas you have to be adaptive in this kind of role. I think that and being able to showcase that in any email is pretty important. So. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Ready to put on the SASSI model?
I have one question about inserting links and documents. Do you think that'll have a huge effect on it? Like whether it's going to go straight to spam? Like, would you recommend doing that in your first email?
It depends. So it's interesting. There is there's a company called Vidyard that does like 30-second clip videos that you can embed in your email, and you can do it through mass email as well as just one-offs. And their big, we used it at one of the sales organizations I worked at, and their big thing was, well, we don't get caught in spam filters. That's a lie. It is 100% dependent upon your audience's filters and the way that they have it set up. There's really no way of knowing whether or not it's going to get caught until it happens. And so I lean to the side of not including those on the initial ones. And I think it's okay to include like an ebook or a link to that maybe in the third or fourth email, so that it's already something that they're going into. And if they've clicked on it, it's already going to not designate it as spam. And I think that's a really important thing to kind of keep in mind, but it's a good question. Anyone else? Now that you're all angry and fired up about not writing emails correctly.
No, I think
that was the whole goal. It would have been way too easy to go through the really good ones that you see. I want you, like the bad ones.
It's hard
just
to find,
stand out.
honestly. Good ones.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The whole time I was going, well, I have these. Nope, I'm in a non-disclosure. I can't do anything with those. Or nope, I can't do anything with those. So
yeah.
So the
This
examples
is great. Lots of good stuff to think about. Yep. There's a lot of strategy that goes into sales enablement materials. And I think a lot of times people underestimate just how hard it is to write really good sales enablement. So as somebody who does it so well, thank you for sharing your expertise.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys.
Yeah. All right. Can you send me the deck and I'll put it in the drive, guys, with the recording of this, because if anyone else wants to listen to it.
Sounds good.
Cool. And then can you write a blog version of this at some point in the next month?
Yeah.
That would be super duper. Okay.
The hire a writer SASSI model.
Yeah, I love it. I'll get you a picture of Gold.
We can yeah, I'm sure Eisen can come up with some pretty fun stuff around that.
There you go. I love it. All right. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
you.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good one.
This was awesome.
Bye, guys.